buddy of mine had some old mining GPUs laying around, so I picked those up from him. I'm going to deep clean each one, bring you along for the process, and today we're starting with the MSI Radeon RX 580. This one wasn't terribly dirty. We blew some excess dust off, but majority of the dust is going to be trapped in the heatsink, so the first step is to remove the screws in the back and remove the cooler from the GPU itself. While we're at it, we'll definitely apply some fresh thermal paste and replace all the thermal pads that we can. While it's not usually necessary, I also like to remove the I/O plate just to make sure there's not any dust trapped anywhere that I can't see. As always, we'll start with some alcohol wipes just to wipe everything down before we throw in the ultrasonic cleaner. Next, I'm using a soft bristle brush just to loosen up any of the dirt. After cleaning off the thermal paste on the cooler itself, the next step is to remove the plastic shroud along with the fans from the heatsink. So here's where the majority of the dust is. Those fan blades are pretty caked up, and the heatsink itself is pretty caked up with dust as well, so we'll definitely want to get that removed. Luckily, the fans slip out pretty easily from the plastic shroud to make it easier to clean. And while we will put this entire assembly in the ultrasonic cleaner, I do like to remove as much excess dust as I can with a wipe first, just to make it a little easier. So normally I would replace these thermal pads, but they're pretty thick. One of them is 6 millimeters, the other is 3 millimeters. I don't have any that are that thick, and I don't want to have to wait to order those. So I'm going to clean these up and reuse them. They are in good condition. They just look a little dirty. So I'll just get that surface dust removed, and then these are good to reuse. Now we can take the cooler assembly outside, get this thrown in the ultrasonic cleaner. We're going to use a little bit of rubbing alcohol, a little bit of Dawn soap, and we'll run that. And then while we're doing that, we're going to use some WD-40 electrical contact cleaner, which is a specialty cleaner, and we're going to use that to blast the PCB along with the other components once they come out of the ultrasonic cleaner. And the weather did not want me to be outside that day, so I went ahead and moved everything to the garage, and we continued to get everything cleaned up. I like to soak everything in 99% isopropyl alcohol when it comes out of the ultrasonic cleaner, just to make sure there's not any water trapped anywhere that I can't see. I also make it a point to use the WD-40 electrical contact cleaner inside the fan where the bearings live, just to make sure all the water is blasted out of there. And then once I do that, I do use a little bit of regular WD-40, but I use a very, very small amount. And everything cleaned up really nice. There's a little bit of excess WD-40 on the fans, which we'll take care of with some alcohol. And everything else, we will start the reassembly process. You can see the fans are still really shiny from that WD-40 that leaked out, so we're just going to clean that up with a little bit of alcohol. Now we'll slip the fans back into the plastic cover, and then we'll get that screwed back into the heatsink itself. I'm also making it a point to make sure that the fans can freely spin and that they're not rubbing on anything. I'm putting the screws in a quick alcohol bath just to get the excess dirt cleaned up from those. And to my surprise, it still had plastic peel on the fans, so I went ahead and pulled those off. Next, I'm going to clean up the PCB with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol. The electrical contact cleaner had a little bit of residue left over, which doesn't really hurt anything, but cosmetically it'll look a little bit nicer to just get that excess off of there. Now we're getting the I/O plate reinstalled. I'm going to go ahead and wipe down the VRM heatsink with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol just to get that cleaned up. Next up, there are some thermal pads that we can replace, so we'll go ahead and get those measured and cut out. And the same way I did in the last video, I just like to lay it on top of the pad and then cut around it. Doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but as long as it covers what we need, we're good to go. And compared to the last card we worked on, this one's way easier on placing the thermal pads where they need to go. So we'll get the VRM heatsink reinstalled, we'll get the thermal paste applied, and then we'll get this thing closed up. Once we apply the thermal paste, we'll put a little bit more than we think we need, and that way when we use the heatsink and place it where it's supposed to go, it'll squish it down and give us the proper coverage that we need. Now I'm just checking to make sure the thermal pad thickness is correct and that the screw holes are lined up. One more quick little rinse for these last set of screws in the isopropyl alcohol, and then we're good to get these back in. And now we've got our fully cleaned RX 580 reassembled. The last thing to do is test it, and then we should be good. And here it is with Firmart 2 running with artifact scan detection on, and it looks like it is good to go. If you found this video useful or entertaining, please hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you next time.